Hey everyone, welcome to the Get the Bag podcast. I'm your host, Gladia Castro. Got my co host, Tim Park.
What's
This is
going on?
episode 15, already halfway through April, kind
Wow.
of.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much halfway through April. Um, yeah, things are moving. We're rolling into spring. Um, as I always like to say, make sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram. Um, like this channel, subscribe. Um, we're here to drop value every week. We're usually on here every Wednesdays.
Mhm.
Um, we'll either have a topic or have a guest on, just talking about how they get the bag. So this week's topic is, I think, you know, I think we're all sort of gone through at some point. Feel like we're holding each other, holding ourselves back, really. But what is holding you back from achieving success?
Mhm.
And I'm sure Tim and I will definitely go on in terms of like things that we feel like we've held ourselves back in terms of gaining certain success. And so we'll go through a few reasons, or I guess subtopics of why we hold ourselves back, and
Mhm.
maybe some things that would help us not hold ourselves back. What are some things that we can implement? So um I think the biggest reason to start off with, and Tim, you can definitely chime in, is I want to say the fear of failure, the
Yeah.
fear of not succeeding, opposite, I guess, of success. And I think that's the most common because there it's fear, right? Fear doesn't, and I think we uncovered this almost a year ago. I think we had a similar topic. Fear is, I think, the acronyms of fake events appearing real,
Yeah.
which is, when you actually break it down like that, it's something that doesn't exist. So the fact that we fear failure, we fear something that hasn't happened, hasn't existed, but that's the biggest reason of what has prevented people from, I guess, quote unquote, taking risks to pursuing their goals. And I think it leads to being comfortable and living kind of a mediocre life in a way. And so, um, yeah, like, how do you kind of feel about that? Or how has like kind of a fear of failure sort of held you back? Because you've gone through some, some issues, or, I don't want to call them failures. I see them more as lessons, but
Yeah.
in terms of like entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think it's just maybe a setback, but not deterring me from moving forward. But I think fear comes into it, especially when you're starting something new. If you're new to real estate or new to whatever business that you're about to start or get into, even a new job, right? Um, People get in their own heads on whether they can do the job, or what if they let themselves down, let their family down. There's a lot of fear that goes into it depending on your situation. And I think for me, it was, just that fear of not succeeding, I guess. But I felt like I was betting on myself, and I was, if it didn't succeed, it was because of me. And if I bet on myself, I could make it work. I wasn't sure how long it will take, but I was willing to put in the work and at least make that effort and put all that I could into it. So that's kind of really how I started. And I think, when you get into the business, there's other fears that come into play, whether it's finances, whether it's, you know, um, your brand.
Hmm.
You want to be, ethical, and you want to be doing the right thing and solving problems, but you don't want to be an imposter in the space as well too.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that creep into your mind, but you definitely have to move, past that, and try to overcome that, because when you start doing, then I think all of those fears kind of go away. Like, I think,
Right.
when It's funny when, we kind of started with Chris Jefferson and the U, and then now, we're helping coach uh, within the leadership of the U, and we're seeing people afraid of making phone calls, like they're fearful of saying the wrong thing or just talking to people.
Mhm.
And then when they finally get on the phone, it's like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought, right?
Right.
And I think that's a testament to actually starting this business or any other business. It's not going to be as bad as you think.
Right. The worst is what's in your head,
Right.
what's, like, holding you back, and who knows how many entrepreneurs or ideas have been prevented from fear of failure.
Yeah.
And I think, um, it's also the mindset too, is like failure is, like how you embrace failure.
Mhm.
Like, I have this, sticky note that I have on, like, I let go of the outcomes and focus on my journey. So I think embracing failure as, like, part of the journey to success. I think that's the biggest, um, mindset shift that you need to make, is, like, everything is a learning opportunity. It's, like, even because you're gonna have setbacks. So, like, what are you gonna do? Like, how are you gonna keep pushing? 'Cause and that also means when you sense resistance or that uncomfortability of fear, that means you're heading in the right direction. You're taking action towards something. So if you kind of view it that way, I think, that's a perfect way of how you identify, um, or how you're able to, like, really get through these fears of failure
Mhm.
and viewing failure as like, "Hey, that's if I'm failing, that means I'm doing something."
Yeah.
Failing
Yeah,
forward, as they say.
exactly. And I think, the mind, like you're saying, the mind shift and the mindset of failure, uh, I think a lot of people, embrace failure instead of
Mhm.
thinking it's a negative, because what they do is they're going to learn from that and then grow and make their business or whatever they're doing better based on that. So it's how you get up, not how you fall down.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and every step of the way, you're gonna get, like, some sort of barrier or, a
Mhm.
fear of failure at every stage because you're so now for us, like, even though cold calling still sucks, like, but we don't view it that way of, like, because 'cause we've
Right.
done it before or, dealing with talking to sellers or negotiating, like, because we've already done it, it's one thing, but it's pushing ourselves. So the next, is maybe commercial or dealing with some other type of issue that comes up. So you always wanna keep, pushing, towards that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I think some other points too is, um, I think lack of self-confidence as well,
Mm.
like what's kind of holding you back is that, and I think you mentioned it earlier, the imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
that we have with ourselves, and like we're not good enough, we're
Mhm.
not worthy of success. And I think that's the biggest thing, and I've definitely been there where, I just don't feel like what I'm doing is enough, or hey, is this really like, we've all had those self-talks where it's like, hey, is this really am I really supposed to be here? Am I
Right.
good enough for this? And those sort of things really go into effect in your lives. Like,
Mhm.
I was reading somewhere that says the thoughts that you, tell yourselves that you internalize, it's like a mirror. It's going to reflect back at you. So it's
Mhm.
all really what you put out in the universe. And so if you're saying these things about yourself, it's going to validate that, right?
Mm.
You're going to experience kind of the what you're telling yourself. And so that's why the mind is so key. If you and like, we talk about affirmations, we talk about, just having that positive, like, hey, I can do anything, because that's going to come back to you one way
Mhm.
or another in like situations or people you or opportunities. So I think that that's also another thing is like, even if people get like through the fear of failure, it's like once they're in it and things aren't going their way, they're
Mhm.
like, well, maybe I'm not good enough for this.
Right.
They go through some no's, right? And they're like,
Mhm.
oh man, I'm getting a bunch of no's. This isn't working out. And why people like quit entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think We're in the stage in social media where it's instant gratification. And I
Mhm.
think when they don't get the results they want in a certain amount of time, they feel like they are just going to give up.
Yeah.
And business, any business that you're in is that's not the case. You have to. There's a lot of people maybe counting on you, or you're counting on yourself to bring in this income, and so you can't have one obstacle kind of deter you away from your overall goal.
Right.
And I think that's people need to realize that, and kind of push through. And sometimes it's hard to push through, but once you do that and you look back and you're like, wow, I did that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's sometimes you just have to, like, no distractions and just focus in, and
Hmm.
it's a lot easier said than done, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, anything right that you do, but, um, it's just really taking it one step at a time, one action at a time, and I think also that's where your support group is really important as well, is surrounding yourself with people who would tell you like, "Yo, quit talking like that." Like, you
Hmm.
sometimes need those people to be like, "Hey, you're worthy of it all. You're good enough to do it," and keep pushing, and I think that's what's so special about the U and the
Hmm.
Charged Up U fam is, we're all supportive of each other. We all want the
Yeah.
best and wanna bring out the best. But I think that's a huge thing with that. And I think some other ways too is, gonna combine some things, but, like, lack of direction or clarity or, like, procrastination as well
Hmm.
is, um, how many times, like, do we come up with excuses of, like, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow," or, um, and, like, I remember especially getting started, even now, like, sometimes where I know I have something important to do,
Yeah.
or I have something, and then it's like, "Oh, wait, but I have to do this," or, we sometimes our bodies want to naturally lean towards something comfortable
Right.
and, like, "Oh, I have to make this really tough call," and then all of a sudden, all these excuses come up of like, "Oh, wait, but let me do this first," instead of just getting it over with. So, I think procrastination is a big part of it too. So, when you kind of lack direction or you aren't organized with that, it's gonna make it a little bit tough. So, you wanna put yourself in a position. I think a perfect example that people use is, working out, right?
Mm.
Of like, "Well, I didn't have time to do this," or whatever. If you can lay out your clothes, your workout clothes right next to you, right next to your bed, so when you wake
Hmm.
up, you put on your clothes, you're more than likely end up going to work out versus not being prepared. So the same way with this is, usually for me the night before, I'll kinda look through my calendar for the following day and then just, put in like, "Okay, I'm time blocking here, this I'm doing this and this from this time. I have meetings here." So that way I like going into today or the next day, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do, and so that already is removing a barrier
Hmm.
for me to like procrastinate or, lack of clarity. So I think that's a big one, and also people don't write clear goals or
Yeah.
just don't kinda come in um and I think it's okay to write, like, goals, but, like, don't focus on, like, the outcome, like, just
Hmm.
write out your goals, but then just focus on just taking action. So I think those are just some things that also hold ourselves back is no clarity.
Yeah. I think that's big too. I think another one too is going back to who you surround yourself with is a big one too. And people may be holding you back, not yourself.
Mm,
And the people that you surround yourself with aren't your cheerleaders. They're more your doubters than anything, and
right,
skeptical of what you're trying to do because they don't understand it. And
right.
So you have to be careful of that, because you want to surround yourself with people that are going to support you, because it is a long haul. It is a journey of ups and downs and sometimes loneliness, because the people that you thought were your friends and supporters aren't supporting you in your business. and that's sometimes a hard pill to swallow. But I think if you do surround yourself with people that are like-minded or successful that you can learn from in the business, and continually, um, you know, support you, lift you up, then I think you're going to succeed in this. Because if you can continue to have the doubters in your life, you're going to start thinking that you can't do it, and I
Right.
think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, I mean, these are kind of considered external factors, right? Like
Hmm.
people that aren't like really in the fold or don't understand, which family members. Sometimes it's also like your environment.
Mm,
It can be money, like lack of resources, and so all those things can hold you back. So it's like recognizing what those are, and taking a step back of like, oh wow, these people are, or dang, I don't have the resources right now, but
mhm.
prepare, like how can I get around that? And so like joining a group where it's like, hey, that's all I can afford, but I know that's an investment. Like how many people do we know that started off with no resources and have been able to turn that around in
Right.
just by working together. So I think it's just coming up with like solutions, not focusing on the problems. Like problems don't exist. It's just situations that come up. Um, and just focusing on like, hey, what can I do to change this? So I think that's a fantastic point, that really comes up a lot. Um, and I think some other reasons as well is also lack of discipline or
Mhm.
motivation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big one, because entrepreneurship is not like, if you lack those two, yeah, I mean, these are reason why people fail is,
100%.
you have to keep that consistency, right? Like discipline in a way is consistency, like doing it over and over and over again, even without seeing any results. Like
Mhm.
that's really hard. And like you just talked about it earlier, like we live in an instant gratification world. People want results now. Like how many people expect to buy a course and expect to be rich, or when
I
they stop
know.
seeing success, or when they aren't seeing success, they're like, "Wait, what's happening? Like, why am I not?" Or when they ask, like, "Hey, am I gonna make money if I buy this course?" And it's just like,
Mhm.
well, that's really on you.
Right.
So just kind of understanding, like nothing comes easy. And I think there are
Mm-mm.
those people that just figure it out, or those anomalies that are able to just kind of get it and just take action. But either way, they needed some form of a discipline or motivation to keep things going.
Mhm.
So that's why I think starting with your why, your goals is really important as well. Because on those days where you don't feel like doing anything, um, you have to look back on that. Like, what am I doing all of this for? Like, am I
Mhm.
doing all this for nothing? Like,
Right.
what's it all meant for? And like even like today, like I didn't feel like doing much, like, and there's external factors happening with that,
Mhm.
that led to it. But I'm like, you know what? No, like let me at least like hop on the dialer, or let me like make these calls. You
Right.
have to really be that person in your head that, and I don't know if you've read like David Goggins,
Mm.
his book, but you almost have to have that like something has to like move you. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I have like his voice or like, his quotes kind of in my head of like, not being a what, and just like just getting after it.
Yeah. And I think everybody needs that little voice in their head to kinda push them forward, even though I know when I was playing, football, I'd always have that voice. It's like, even during practice when I couldn't do anymore, it was like that little voice, "Come on, you can do it." You can push further, and I think that's the same thing in business, that you think you're to your limit, but you have that voice that can push you even further, right?
Right.
So, I think a lot of athletes have that little voice, and when you're an entrepreneur, you have to have that little voice to help you push forward. Um,
Right.
you know, a lot of people have a little voice that is their, kind of devil's advocate, I guess, and say,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
like assessing risk and all of that. But as long as you're deciding to move forward and can make a decision to move forward, I think you're going to be in a good space.
Yeah, absolutely, and also learning how to apply that because
Hmm.
people can be athletes, and it's like, "Well, how do I apply this to a
Mm,
business, to a different environment?" 'Cause I'm the same way too, the way I apply, when I played sports as well, when I played basketball, and, even when I work out, because I've started boxing,
hmm.
doing taking boxing classes, and that it's almost the same way there too, where I'm doing a workout and I want to just stop, and, like, I have to sometimes I say out loud, like, "Let's go, G," like,
Mm,
you know, "Get your ass up," kinda thing, and,
right.
sometimes yeah, it's like, how do you apply that? And you can apply the same thing, it's all the same mentality, it's just a different, I guess, arena. It's a different
Yeah.
competition. You're not actually moving your body, it's more like your mind,
Hmm.
and the actions you take, so I think that's huge and that's key in dealing with these sort of lack of discipline, motivation. Again, it always reverts back to your why.
Yeah.
Um, and I think some other ones too is um, I think we always I don't know, maybe certain people too is like perfectionism. Like we want things to be exactly a certain way before we even take the next step, or like how many people have we talked about, and an example is like I'm on text with or I text different people in our group, and they're like, "Well, I'm finishing up this course, or I'm doing this before I do that."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Why haven't you just," or like they were talking about the SMS campaign,
Right.
and I was like, "Just start. Like, why haven't you done it?" Like,
Right. Right.
and they're like, "I have to get everything," and in certain aspects, maybe you do have to get certain things set up in your systems, but you can tailor that, or fix that
As you're going.
as you're
Yeah.
going. And so I try to apply the same thing too, of because sometimes I'm like, well, let me wait until this is that. I mean, obviously you don't want to go in blind and just start doing stuff, but sometimes when you're thrown in a fire,
Yeah.
that's like you learn a lot quicker. And that's kind of even in the my current job. I was thrown in the fire of like figuring stuff out, and it was not comfortable at
Yeah.
all, but I was able to figure it out, or I was able to learn a lot quicker, because when you're put in that position where your back is against the wall, you somehow, I don't know, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you do that. So I think removing that perfectionism,
Hmm.
and not focusing on that, and just again focusing on your journey, that's what's gonna take you, and knowing like, "Hey, I'm gonna make mistakes too." Like,
Yeah.
it's okay to make mistakes. Like, humans, we make mistakes. Like, that's just the nature of the game, and once you've accepted that, then you can kinda, like, move on.
Yeah. I think one of my jobs when I moved to California was with Warner Brothers, right? And when I first joined, I didn't know. I mean, it was the first time I was in a studio, and it was kind of a shock to me working for Warner Brothers and the movies, the whole thing. And then my property that I was marketing for was Harry Potter,
Mm,
and I got thrown into the fire. Like it was, it was like I couldn't ask my boss because my boss didn't know she was there for only a year. She didn't know what the previous person had done that was there for 7 years.
mm,
So it was like I had to figure everything out by myself. So for me to
right,
keep that job, I had to figure out. I had to meet with different, whatever it took, basically, meet with different departments. Do you deal with me or do you not deal with me? Having lunch with, networking within the company, and making sure
mhm,
that I'm talking to the right people and stuff like that. So I did what I could, and this the same thing happens when you're in business and as an entrepreneur. You need to just figure it out, and don't be afraid not to figure it out. It's just
right,
like if you're talking to the wrong person, then you just learn that you're not going to talk to that person again, or that's not the person that you want to do business with, or
Right.
whatever the revelation is about that meeting. You just gain some information on it, but you took action, and you moved forward instead of, let me get everything in order. And if I did that, I wouldn't have had a job. They would have let me go like in a
Right.
month. So,
Right. And that does happen to some people because they just that's just, how it goes. So, um it's really like how you view things, like your mentality of it all.
hmm
And it's, and I hope you guys kind of see the pattern in that the it's all in your head. Like
mm,
what's holding, like nobody's holding you back. Like there can be these external factors, but it's
right.
you. It all starts with you. So all these things like perfectionism, lack of resilience, being put in the fire. Some people are thrown in the fire and they freak out or they complain, right? They're like,
hmm
"Oh man, like, maybe we complain a little bit, but it's just like we still figure it out." And like, and maybe it's a cultural thing too,
Sure.
where, our parents, well, my parents are immigrants.
Yep.
They could have easily complained, and maybe, they wanted to, but they had a family to provide for.
hmm
Like, this is my situation now. I have no excuse. Like, I need to figure this out, or else, like, or else my family isn't taken care of. So, I think I always kind of stuck with that mentality of not like complaining and just putting in the work. But, I've also found like you can't just do that. There has to be a balance of like knowing your worth as well. Cause
Right.
sometimes you get so focused on working hard, and sometimes working hard isn't, you have to learn to like work smart too. Like, how
hmm
can you strategize and stuff? But, um, I think it's just, how you view things. And I know we're
Yeah.
coming up on time, but I think the biggest thing is you you're going to run into barriers. So define success on your own terms. Like, what does that look like? What does the definition of success? What's your why? What are
hmm
you working towards? And once you're able to figure that out, you're kind of bulletproofing like your path to success,
hmm
because you have a blueprint to go off of when it goes sideways. And believe me, like, I'm not perfect. We're still on our way to
Yeah.
achieving success, and we fail every day. Like, there's yesterday, I felt like um I could have done more, or like, and I think
hmm
it just kind of just felt a little bit like, oh man, like, and it's easy to focus on that, and that these sort of thoughts hold you back
Yeah.
because you're stuck in like the past of something that happened. And that's something I'm working towards too, is like not focusing on the future, not focusing on the past, but just focusing on the present and being in the moment, and what can I do right now
hmm
to like take me further, and taking action. So when you look at it from that perspective too, you're able to accomplish a lot more, because yes, you want to look in the future of like, hey, what could we be? And sometimes you need to allocate time for that, but that shouldn't be your main focus. It should be,
Right.
what can I do right now in this
hmm
instant, that's going to work towards my goals.
No, I think that's important, and those are great takeaways. So it's really about you, and um, you know, finding out what's holding you back, and then just kind of overcoming that. And we're always here too to ask questions, and because I think there's situations that we haven't been through that maybe you have, and we're all learning as we go through this journey of our business. But it's not going to be all rainbows and roses and all of that. There's going to be a lot of lumps and bumps and roadblocks, and those roadblocks could be, either busted down, or you go around them, or there's a lot of options to move forward. So just believe in yourself and know that you can move forward with these obstacles. And it's, like you said, G, it's in your head. So just having that mindset that no, you can succeed, and everybody goes through it as a business owner or someone working in a job. So just know that you're not alone, but you can overcome.
Absolutely. And we'll drop the mic there. It's a great topic. Hope you guys got a lot out of it. Of course, don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel. We're on here every month or every week, I should say, and with either a guest or topics just like these. Um, we will have a guest next week. Should
Yep.
be really exciting. Um, this guy went from 0 to 70 units in 2 years
Love
without
it.
syndication or joint ventures. So we're gonna talk about how he was able to leave his job and scale his real estate business through ownership. So don't want to miss that next week. We'll be on at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. So make sure you set those reminders. I will probably create that video soon,
Awesome.
so that you guys can set your reminders and save. But always appreciate your guys' support. Have a great rest of your week. We'll be out in Vegas this weekend for a real estate event. Shout out to Wire, holding their first golf annual golf tournament. Should be. They always say make deals are made on the golf course. So I don't have a golf swing or anything like that. I go to Top Golf. That's about it.
There
But
you go. Hey, you got
um,
a swing.
I got something.
There you go.
But should be really fun. We'll probably unpack that at some point. But we'll catch you guys next week.
Cool. Peace.
Right.